Yes, yes. The great Andrew Douglas taught me once that done is better than perfect. So that's kind of our new motto. We just keep pushing forward. Like, let's just get this thing going, and we'll deal with it in post.
Look, man, I'm not exaggerating at all when I tell you that I heard you guys talking about done is better than perfect. Like, I don't know, it might have been a year ago on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that has become a mantra for me, like in all aspects of my life. It's honestly made my life better.
Doesn't it though? It's just like you could spend a lot of time worrying about things and like trying to make it better, you know. And as musicians, I suppose that's probably inherent in our DNA or whatever. But man, it is freeing. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, 100%. I can't tell you how much time I spent just like spinning my wheels on like, you know, trying to get a graphic exactly right or trying to get, you know, a song just right. And it's like, you know what? At some point, you just do it and push it out and stop stressing over it, and your life is better for sure.
Absolutely. And I've taken that into my teaching sometimes too, as well as like, and not using that direct quote, but you know, like, all right, now you got to go out and do something with this. Like your homework assignment is to go do something with this. Like, I'm tired of you trying to make it perfect. Like now what? Well, how do we apply this to real life?
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
Well, and speaking of your teaching, so here's my intro for Andy Fusco. Or should I say Fusco or Fusco? Or how should I pronounce your last name?
I thought you didn't use last names on this show.
Yeah, that's well, you're not a minor. I'm not too worried about you, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough. You can call me whatever you want, just don't call me Susan. But
yeah, okay.
No, but it's technically pronounced Fusco, but nobody ever says that. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say it right now. Here's what we've got for us. Here is Andy Fusco. He's a rock band drummer, pipe major of the Las Vegas Pipeband. He's a grade 2 soloist. He's the Las Vegas Bagpiper, a full-time piper, which is pretty dang cool. He's one half of the infamous Chanter Rant podcast, an instructor with the Piper's Dojo, finally, the winner of the Best Beard Award from the Big Rab show.
Woohoo!
And it's also been said that every early E that the Las Vegas Pipe Band plays in a performance adds another gray hair to that beard. How silver are you looking these days?
Oh my God! It's a good thing. We're not in person anymore. Like nobody would recognize me.
So when everybody gets back together, they'll be like, "What did you do with Andy?"
Oh my God! They'll think I'm like Sean Connery. Well, actually, that was my whole goal.
Yeah, could definitely be worse.
Minus the slap a woman stuff, but
right. Drop that stuff. You have to start slurring your S's a little bit. Get that Sean Reed way of speaking as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but Andy, yeah, that's great, man. You actually know a lot about me, more than I even know.
Creepy, right?
Yeah.
So, and well, most of this I could just pull from the Las Vegas Pipeband. Of course, has like excellent web presence. I've watched some of those. I think called the Inner Circle interviews.
Oh, Inside the Circle.
Inside the Circle. Yeah, I started with at least one of them that you did with Stuart Little. That's what pulled me in, and then that's when I started looking at all the Las Vegas Pipeband content and be like, dang, these guys do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, we try, and a lot of that has to do with Josh. I mean, the quality of it, anyway, for sure.
Yeah.
The ideas of like the Circle of Death and the Inside the Circle concepts were, you know, just stuff we always wanted to do. But Josh has the ability to take it to a very high quality level, so that helps a lot. You know?
Yeah, he does.
Makes people actually not turn off. You know.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hoping to talk to him sometime in a few months to talk about that the Piper's Planner that he designed for the dojo as well.
Yeah.
He does some cool stuff.
Good luck with that. Like when you did you had a good idea. Separate us, you'll get way less swearing and craziness. So
yeah, that's one thing for anybody listening to this who isn't aware of the Chanter Rant podcast. I would highly recommend it if there are no children around. It's hilarious and a lot of fun, but yeah, definitely not. It's not like if you're going to listen to it at work, you got to use headphones for sure.
Absolutely. We've had so many people write in and say like they just started listening and then oh my God they had their headphones out at the wrong time and all that kind of thing.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I binged up to current starting like I don't know last winter or something, and it was my go-to for when I was driving by myself.
That's good idea.
Yeah.
So now we're in your heads, which is great.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, that's one of the weird things for me right now, Andy, is talking to you and hearing you speak at 1x speed. Because with all my podcasts and books on Audible and everything, I'm usually at least at 1.5, sometimes at 2.
Wow.
So hearing you speak at normal speed is kind of throwing me a little bit, honestly, because I've heard your voice so much, but always way faster.
I can talk faster if you like. I'm pretty good at that. I'm from New York. I can do that.
Dude, that actually nails it. That's exactly what I'm used to.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts a lot too, but I usually go 1.2. That's about as far as I can go. Otherwise, it drives me nuts. Like I can't.
Yeah, my
Plus,
wife.
my focus is hard. I have to. I'm like I see a squirrel and I'm off.
Yeah,
So I have to really pay attention.
yeah.
But
My wife thinks I'm crazy. She doesn't think I should listen to stuff like that. But oh well. So speaking of New York, you're from New York, but you're thoroughly ensconced in Las Vegas now. How did that happen?
yeah, that's correct. I've been Vegas now 20 years, I guess. Almost as long as I was in New York. I'm getting darn close to that. So, and I'm from upstate New York. Just to clarify, people from the city hate it when you lump them together.
Yeah, of course.
But
When I hear New York, I immediately imagine like little Andy Fusco walking around on Times Square, kind of
exactly, like everybody imagines Manhattan because that's all you've ever seen.
Thing. Yeah,
On TV or whatever. But yeah, so yeah, now I've been here 20 years now. I basically went through college in New York. Spent a couple times, bounced around the Northeast. My parents moved a couple times, but and then got out of college and was like, I always had a little bit of wanderlust in me, a little bit of dreams of traveling the world and stuff like that as a kid, as probably a lot of people do.
yeah,
And got out of college and like me and a couple buddies did backpack around Europe after college for the summer, and that was fun. And it's just like I don't really want to die where I was born, so I got to get out of here somehow.
Well, you got a pretty good distance right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so me and a friend decided to move across the country. We were looking at San Diego or Las Vegas or Seattle were our choices, and Vegas had the best living situation at the time. California is incredibly expensive, and
Yeah.
so we picked Vegas, and so we drove across the country, just kind of picked up our stuff and left. Is kind of how we did it.
Yeah.
And 4 months later, he moved back. We both had girlfriends in New York at the time, and I think she pressured him. I don't really know the whole story, but that's my impression, to really get him to come back. So he did, and I had just gotten a good job here at the time. I was working in finance at the time, and I had just got a full-time job. I was doing temp work, and I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me! Like,
Yeah.
I just got a good job here, and so I decided to stick it out. Like I wasn't ready. I wasn't done yet. I didn't know what was ahead, but I wasn't ready to give up yet.
Yeah.
So I stuck it out, man, and I was taking lessons. That's right when I started learning pipes, as a matter of fact. It was right before I left.
Oh, right before you left. So you started learning while still on the East Coast, and then kind of brought it over with you into Vegas?
Correct, yeah. I mean, maybe 3 months. I bought a chanter on the internet, which did exist at the time, I think.
Was it a good chanter, or did you get one of them rosewood ones that'll give you splinters?
No, it was decent. It was a, what's that Canadian company? I always forget the name of them.
Might have been John Walsh, or is McCallum
Not Walsh,
up there?
the other. No, McCallum's Scotland. The other one, whatever the other one's called, I'll think of it in a sec. But I just got lucky. It was like that in the Green Book. It came in a package from somebody, and it turned out to be a good chanter. I didn't know what I was buying, of course. I just bought something off the internet like everybody does,
Yeah.
And I went to a band called, I went to the Hibernian Hall in Albany and went to the Albany Police Band, I believe, because they were given open lessons, and hooked up with a guy and learned a couple things, I tried to learn on my own first. I got through like the first chapter of the Green Book, hit D throws, and I'm like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
I need to find somebody.
Anything beyond grace notes, it gets pretty rough to do it on your own.
Correct. And I had only played like drums and like saxophone in my life up to that point, so I didn't know what any of that was, So so then I hooked up with the Hibernian Hall, the Albany Police Pipeband, got a couple, few months of lessons, and then moved to Vegas, and then hooked up with what was then the Desert Sky Band.
Right.
Now the Las Vegas Pipeband.
Yeah.
But same group.
I grew up. I've grown up here in Utah, kind of a neighbor to you there, so I've been aware of the.
Oh.
I was aware of the Desert Sky Band somewhat.
Right.
Just having, I was a little kid piper. I got started piping when I was really little, and so we'd see. I'm pretty sure they came to some games here in Utah or something like that. And that was
definitely did. Yeah.
About them.
Yeah.
So what about now? You mentioned that you had played drums before. You're also a rock band drummer. Are you
Correct.
playing with one group right now, or do you play around with a bunch of different folks? Just kind of grab gigs as you can.
Technically, I'm in two rock bands right now.
What are those? Plug them, man. Give me those rock bands.
One of them is sort of a hard rock heavy metal band. We are called Shadow the Moon. We're very kind of Chevelle-esque kind of
Nice,
band.
nice.
That's how I would describe us. And the other band is a band called Revolta, which is kind of alt rock. I would say we're kind of like Muse a little bit in that sense.
Yeah.
And that those guys I haven't actually seen since COVID started. Like they went complete lockdown, and which is understandable. The other guys were like, we don't care. Let's practice. So we've been working together the whole time. So so that's what I'm doing currently. I've played in bands around Vegas for 10 years now, on and off.
And that's drum kit, right?
Drum kit, yeah, correct. Yeah, and I've done that since I was like 10 or 12 or something, you know. So yeah, I love the drums. It's great.
Yeah. Do you feel like you said you also play a little bit of saxophone? Do you feel like the saxophone fingering and stuff helped you get a little leg up when you started playing pipes?
Not even a little bit.
Not even a bit.
Well, and I played saxophone in like middle school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I even played trombone for a little bit. Just trying to find an instrument that I really gravitated to. But so I mean, it had a reed, so I was familiar with reed instruments, and I kind of
something.
But that was
you blow
about
one
it.
end of it. It's similar in that way, right?
Exactly. But the keys thing, and like it was totally different. Yeah. Although I recently started learning Highland pipes.
Yeah,
and,
I wanted to ask about that. I saw that on the Dojo 100-day challenge that you and Ozzy Broad. She's learning banjo, right? And you were learning
banjo,
pipes?
Correct? Yeah, exactly. So we kind of decided to do that together, and that's the Chanter has keys on it, so like it's at least somewhat similar to a saxophone, sort of.
Now it's coming full circle. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm terrible at it, so don't ask me to play. It's absolutely awful, but you know.
Man, I've always wanted to learn Highland pipes. I've heard people say that going from competitive Highland piping to Highland pipes is like moving from marching band to jazz. I don't know. Maybe you're not quite at that point right now if you're still kind of figuring out the notes and stuff. But what kind of feel do you get from it? Are you digging it? Is this like a whole new world, or is it pretty similar to Highland piping?
No, not at all. And that's what I find fascinating about it is it's drastically different. And I know almost nothing because I've had no real instruction from anybody that knows what they're doing. And it's just like when people learn Highland pipes and they go to YouTube and you're like, tell them don't do that. That's exactly what I've done. You know what I mean? But at least I know what good piping sounds like, so I know who I'm listening to at least a little bit. But it is very different. Like it's in my experience so far, which is very minimal. It's way less formal, I guess.
That makes sense.
It's a little more free form. Like crossing noises don't seem to be an issue. I mean, I don't have confirmation of that, but it seems like that's like not a thing. I mean, they do them and it's okay. They're okay with it. And like the fingering is obviously slightly different, but it's similar enough. But it's just more freeform. And a lot of the things they do seems to be by ear. They have written music, but most of it's way more commonly transferred by ear, I guess, or by like watch me and do what I do kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Where Highland pipes are way more formal and like way more harsh, I suppose it seems like. Yeah. Meaning like there's one way to do it and you're going to do it this way and that's it. And which it's a style and whatever.
It's got a strong sort of military heritage for sure.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's a pretty good description. Like calling it a little more jazz. It's definitely like, like jazz, you can play the wrong notes, and apparently that's a good thing. It seems to be the case here.
You better play the wrong notes. But now any jazz fan's gonna be upset with
they're gonna write in. You can write in at Chanter Rant at gmail.com.
Yeah. Send anything you dislike. Let them know at Chanter Rant. Don't bother me about it. So are you learning that on like if you got a goose, like it's just a Chanter hook to it, or you got some drones on it?
I have what's called a half set, but I don't have the drones hooked up. So all I'm playing is the Chanter and the bellows, basically.
Was it like a local maker that you got them from? Anybody you'd want to call out?
I believe he doesn't make pipes anymore. Here's the other thing about Highland pipes is you think there's little on the internet about Highland pipes. There is nothing. I could not find this guy. I went on a hunt. I knew kind of his name because the guy I bought him from told me, these are, and I don't even remember what they are, O'Reilly pipes or something, whatever they are. Yeah. The guy was apparently in Nova Scotia, and so I bought him from a friend in the band who was moving out of town and thought he was going to learn to play him, never got the hang of it, and just decided to sell him. So I bought him from him thinking, someday I'll do that. And he told me he bought him from a shop in Maine that the guy makes them in Nova Scotia, something, whatever, right? So I went on a hunt to find this guy because I needed a reed because the reed was like 6 years old, never played, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And much like I think it's like oboe or whatever, bassoon and things like that, you're supposed to make your own reeds, or for the most part, people do.
Yeah.
Unlike Highland pipes, so that's a whole big thing too. Um, and if it doesn't work, like you really need to know what to do to
You got
it,
to
which
be
I know
much
nothing.
more self-sufficient. You don't have like a Henderson Imports or some or Lone Star
No,
Piper or something. You can just be like, send me 12 reeds.
yeah, nothing I've found yet. So I actually found a guy that makes reeds in California, and he asked me to send him the chanter because I had a reed issue, and I still have it. I still have the issue, so I sent him my chanter so he can make the reed for the chanter. Like that's how
Wow.
specific it has
Wow.
to be. So I'm like, well, okay, so I won't play for a month, and hopefully get it back in a month to 6 weeks. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, jeez.
Or I may never get it back at all. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, man, it's wild. So and I honestly cannot off the top of my head remember what kind of pipes they are.
Oh, no sweat,
But
man. I dig it.
yeah.
That's totally fine. But you also mentioned saxophone might be influencing you. Maybe it'll give you some benefit for your uilleann piping. But you also have gone from drum set to Highland snare fairly recently.
I did, yeah.
Was that an easy transition, or was it pretty funky to kind of get the Highland specific sort of swing?
Well, I wouldn't say it was crazy difficult, but that's more because I'm a drummer, and I think in drum terms more often than not. I think rhythmically first, almost in everything. I had always listened to pipe band drumming, so I knew the feel of what they were doing, and I kind of knew the flow of what they were doing. I just didn't know how they actually made it happen. So, like, if somebody would show me the like when I started taking lessons, and show me the sticking of a certain, like, I don't know, single five or whatever, some sort of thing. Like I had heard it before, so I knew what I was trying to replicate. I heard
Oh,
it a
sure.
thousand times, and I knew it in my head what it was supposed to sound like. So it did make a. I mean, it helped. I mean, the difficult part was I've never played traditional grip in my life, so that's where you play the backwards left hand thing.
Yeah.
I've always played drum set, matched grip, and even in high school and college when I played in like, a drum percussion ensemble and band and whatnot, we always played match grip for whatever reason. So I just never learned that. So that was really, really tricky. That took me like 6 months to finally not get my thumb in the wrong place. Like it took forever to
Are,
get that right.
does it feel comfy now, or do you still feel tempted to just like go back to just gripping both sticks the same and just play the Highland stuff, but
No,
holding
it
it?
feels way more comfortable now. So like I
Gotcha.
used to sort of cheat sometimes and try to play just for fun. I would play like something somebody gave me with match grip because I could do my left hand better.
Yeah.
But once I learned the traditional grip, like now that's how I prefer to try to
Gotcha.
play like in a snare drum style. Like
Yeah.
if I'm playing drum set, I still play match grip. I wouldn't flip for that, but it's not uncomfortable. Let's put it that way. Like I'm not afraid of it anymore.
Gotcha. So when you moved to Vegas with your, just budding sort of beginning of learning to play pipes, did you immediately find the Desert Sky Pipe Band and start picking up lessons from them, or was it a while to figure out, kind of who you could talk to and what to do there? Because I mean, I'm familiar with Vegas. It's a big city all by itself, but it's also all by itself. So I'm curious if it was like
Correct.
really easy, like who plays bagpipes, and everybody just pointed in one direction, kind of thing.
It was very easy to find them. They were the only band in town as far as I remember at the time. Um, I think I even found them before I moved because I was like that into it,
Oh,
like right
gotcha.
away. Like I was super motivated to play all the time and practice. And so before I moved, I think I even somehow scouted them out online or somehow found the pipe major's name or number or something. And like as soon as I got here, I went and found them. Like it was one of my priorities,
Yeah,
if you will.
it was a big deal, huh?
Um, yeah, so I knew I wanted to keep going, and I didn't want to like flounder, and I know how easy it is to like lose motivation and stuff like that. So I found them almost right away and started taking lessons like they did the typical, before they band practice. Here's an hour of people just showing up to
Yeah, like a free class
learn
group
chant.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
So
So there was a transition then at some point where you went from having a, like a quote unquote normal job to being a full time piper. But there was also a transition at some point where you went from being a piper in the Desert Sky Pipe Band to pipe major of the Las Vegas Pipe Band. In what order did these things happen? Like, were you a professional piper and then became pipe major and then talked about changing the band name? Or were you like, how did that happen?
so no, so I became pipe major of the band in 2007. So basically, the way that happened was I was learning. pipes. I learned pretty fast. I sort of fortunately have a natural whatever for music in general. I tend to learn things fast. And just kind of I became pipe sergeant within like 2 years. I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no leadership skills whatsoever. And just because I was one of the better players, that's how I ended up in that position. And then basically what happened was 2004, I went to the Worlds with a band out of California.
Which band did you go to the Worlds with?
It was called Misty Isle out of Southern California. Awesome. Yeah. And we did like this combined, as bands do sometimes when both are kind of floundering in a way. You combine bands, and the drum section from this band is pretty good, but the pipe section of this band is pretty good. And then we did one of those sort of deals. Kind of a hybrid. So a few of us, exactly, yeah. And then so they decided to go to the Worlds, and so a few of us went.
What grade were you playing in?
I think it had to be 4B. Had to be. If 4B existed at the time, I think it was. But,
yeah, so it would have been 4 something anyway.
4 something, yeah. It was definitely 4. So then when I was there, I met a kid that was like one of my flatmates. He played in the band as well, that played in a grade 2 band out of California. And he's like, oh, you should come play with us, and just, you're pretty good. Like, come, maybe you can make it in this group or learn a lot from Seamus Coyne, if you know who he is. He was running that group. So when I got back from the Worlds, he's like, call Seamus and talk to him and see if he'll let you in. And so I did. I was like, I'll explore the opportunity, whatever. Yeah. And I was terrible. I'm a very, very average grade 4 player at the time, but, but I learned quick and people noticed that. So I did that and started playing with a band out of California for probably 5 years. So until 2009, I played with them.
And was this in addition to playing with the Desert Sky Pipe Band, or was it just the one band?
So at that point, I kind of stepped back. I kept playing with them, but I didn't compete with them at that point.
Gotcha.
Meaning I'd play gigs and kind of help out. But I kind of mostly was focused on that because I was traveling to California once a month to practice with them. And I had a real job at the time, meaning, a 9 to 5, if you will.
Right.
So I was working in finance. I worked at a bank at Wells Fargo at the time. And so then, let's see. I played with it for 5 years. And then 2007 came along, and our pipe major decided to go get his MBA. And he asked if I would step in and take over the band. So that's how that happened. And so I said yes. So then I was doing both at the same time, and I could do both because it's different grades. You're allowed to do all that. So, and then 2010, I was in banking still, and I lost my job. Like, just the economy at the time, everything went to hell.
Yeah, and
in Vegas, as it does every few years.
Right. I have friends who live in Vegas. That was a rough time for a lot of people.
Yeah, the big, 2008 hit hard, and it was still kind of happening. It took like a couple of years, the housing bubble, all that kind of stuff that happened.
Right.
As it probably happened a lot around the country, but it was really, really big
it's
here.
Really bad in Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, as things go.
I mean, so in so many ways, Vegas is like an island in the middle of the ocean. It's just an ocean of dirt instead of water. So it's like
it's very, very true.
It does have to be kind of a self-sufficient machine, and so it can get hit pretty hard.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and we talk about that too as it pertains to piping. Like, it's very hard. Like, California's great. You got all these suburbs of people that play. We have our city, and that's it. You got 4 hours in any direction to anybody else
right.
that does anything related to piping. So out of towners is way more difficult.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, so 2010, lost my job. Then I just started doing piping just because I had nothing else to do. It wasn't like an intentional choice, but I was kind of prepared for it in a way.
Yeah, gotcha.
We were still Desert Sky at the time, and to be honest, I've always hated that name. That was like on the top of my list to somehow get that changed. And it took numerous years for me to convince people to change it, and like literally 5 years. Like, I think we changed it in 2012 or about that.
That can
and
be
it was
tricky.
a fight.
I'd imagine there are probably still people today who are still unhappy about it.
Oh yeah, there's still people that say it sometimes. We have like people in our like St. Andrew's Society or one of our drum major who's been around for 20 years, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll say it, and I swear he does it on purpose just to tweak me, because he'll always start and say the name and then he'll correct himself. I'm like, come on, man, it's been like 8 years. Like, everybody knows the name at this point.
Oh, excuse me. The new utilitarian name, Las Vegas Pipeband.
But yeah, man, it was purely marketing. It was like Desert Sky. Nobody knows what the hell that is or why or cares.
Well, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and there was a time period. I don't know how well you've been around a while. where putting Sky in your name was like the thing to do.
Oh yeah, and
right?
you had to spell it Skye.
Correct, right? Yeah, and it was super cheesy, I think. And I was like, that's so dumb. Like nobody knows where we are, where we're from, or what we do. Just,
Yeah.
like that's what your name should be.
Yeah, I think I've heard you and
Las
Josh
Vegas
even
Pipeband,
mention
done.
on your podcast on the Chanter Rant that like you would have people ask like, "Oh, who are you guys?" Be like, "We're the Desert Sky Pipe Band." And be like, "Well, where are you from?" Like, here,
Right.
we're
All
your
the
local
time.
pipe band. We're your neighbors.
all the time. And to me that's just good marketing. Like,
Yeah,
and that's
not to
why I'm the
mention
Las
that
Vegas
like
Bagpiper.
you've got built-in SEO when you start putting stuff up on websites and stuff. If you're the Las Vegas Pipe Band.
Exactly correct. That was my whole motivation for getting the Las Vegas Bagpiper name and also Las Vegas Pipe Band is when somebody's looking for a piper, they're going to type in Bagpipes Las Vegas.
Yep,
You're automatically going to be at the top.
I'm right there with you, man. My personal URL is utahbagpipes.com.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. And now I've noticed so many people, and I'm not saying I started this by any means, but you see so many people city bagpiper. On their all over the place.
100%. Yeah.
So just makes sense.
You started it. Yeah. This is
I'll take credit for it.
Definitely your idea. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically how it all sort of came about. I think that's clear.
Right on, man. So as you get the name changed, your pipe band and the pipe band. Are you still playing with other groups as well, or does Las Vegas Pipe Band become the main focus pretty quickly? For you personally, I mean.
After I left the Seamus's band in 2009, like I pretty much focused on the local band, being that I really wanted something of quality in Vegas, which we never had. We've always had, sort of poor to average grade 4 pipe bands here.
Well, I've often said that part of what draws me to bagpipes, because I like to play other instruments too, but it's kind of what I've stuck to the most. If I'm honest, part of it is what I call security in obscurity. That if I wanted to play guitar, I'd have to be really good to go out and play in public. But there's not a lot of bagpipers, so not many people can judge me if I'm my tuning isn't perfect or if I mess up a bit.
Correct.
So I'd imagine that's even more the case in somewhere like Las Vegas. It's like, well, there are exactly 8 people, within 300 miles who do what I do. I probably don't have to try too hard.
Yep, that's for sure too. And I mean, I looked into that, but that's absolutely correct. And I joke around about this often. I always say, like, if Jack Lee ever moves here, I am screwed. my career goes out the window, or what? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I still care, so I still try hard, but I'm never gonna be Jack Lee or whoever. You know what I mean? If
you're Stuart Little, because you guys bring Stuart Little out for the band, right? If he just is like, I like this, I'm gonna stay here now. Right, Stuart, and you can be the Las Vegas bagpiper now.
Yeah, Jack, for example, is a very we've had him out many times, and he's very astute. He's very curious about everything. So he asks a lot of questions, and he always asks, "How's the business going? How's everything going?" You get a lot of gigs. He's always asking a lot. I get real nervous.
Feelers out.
Yeah, I'm getting nervous. Like, Jack, you're not moving here, right?
Yeah, be like, it's really rough, Jack. Oh, it's been terrible.
Oh, it's terrible. You don't want to be here. Yeah, absolutely. But I think if I had ended up in California, like, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I mean, maybe I would, but probably not. The competition is huge. Like, there's very good players in Southern California, obviously. Yeah. But I also think it's, right marketing, right time kind of stuff as well,
Yeah. Well, and part of your professional portfolio in bagpiping is also teaching.
Correct.
You teach with the Piper's Dojo. I can't imagine that they'd have anything against you sort of talking about it and plugging them.
No. He's pretty cool. He lets us do whatever we want.
Yeah. So
pretty much.
Actually, Andrew, I meant to mention before that you and I actually have talked before. When it's been a while. It's maybe been 2 years. We just talked really briefly in that context. I had signed up for one of those 1 month trial runs of the dojo, and you did one of those kind of onboarding calls with me, and just was just to kind of see how things were going and ask what my goals were and stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah. That's one of my jobs there. So when you work at the dojo, you're probably, unless you're Bruce Gandy, you're not just doing teaching. They have you do lots of stuff, which I don't know. Like, I'm an independent musician. I have lots of friends that do that, meaning like full time, if you want to call it musician, where it's the gig economy. Like, I'm doing a million things.
Yeah.
Because you have to make a living. Like, it's not just like going and playing funerals and weddings. Like, that's a small part of what I do. Right. So just like at the dojo, like I do teach 5 classes a week, but I also do the onboarding. Like you said, I do what we call strategy calls. So we welcome people to the dojo. We show them around because there's a lot on the website. So it gets very, you can get lost very easily if you're, especially if you're not particularly computer savvy. It's easy to get lost. So we show people around. We help them get started, all that kind of stuff. I do student reviews. We do people submit assignments, meaning like they can upload recordings of themselves doing the homework that we give them. So we have to review all that. So we do stuff like that. I mean, there's a million things that we do when you're working for them.
Would you say that at this point you are really the lifeblood of Piper's Dojo? You're the power behind the throne, as it were?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're making it all happen.
Yeah. I'm pulling all the strings.
Yeah. Andrew Douglas is just a front man, really.
Yeah, he's just that pretty face
the pretty
on the
face
front
you
of
put in the front. Yeah.
No, he is significantly involved. Like that guy is, he's like I don't know what the right word is to say, but he is a genius in a lot of ways. But he's got a million ideas, and he's always trying to push the envelope. So, and that's probably why they're as successful as they are. Yeah. So, and he's also got a great eye for talent. And that's what I think probably one of his biggest strengths is getting people around him to do the jobs that he either doesn't have time for or doesn't want to do anymore, whatever it might be.
Wise delegation, right?
Yeah. So he's kind of like, he'll appreciate this, and I've never told him this before, but he's kind of like the Bill Belichick of the group, where he's just a good manager and picks good talent around him. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, and he's a big Patriots fan, so he'll appreciate that.
Well, I will make sure. I'll pull out just that sound clip and email it straight to him.
Yeah. You can bleep it out otherwise. So.
And then I'll bleep it out before I release the episode. There you go.
Right.
As if you were just cussing him out.
Right.
So on Instagram and stuff like that, you're the Iron Piper. Is there anything behind that other than just it sounds cool?
It's one of those things. If I could change it now, I would. But
right, but you already started it.
It's too late. Like
yeah.
When I first started piping, like I was really into a band called Seven Nations, if you remember them. But previous
100%.
to their piper, they've had a few over the years, but they had a guy that was known as the Anti-Piper. That was just like his thing, and he did a solo album that I thought the guy is a crazy piper, and it just sounded cool to me, so I came up with something like that. This was back in like 2000. And I was into like Iron Man and stuff, and it was supposed to be like, oh, I'm gonna have a symbol where it's like an Iron Man guy playing bagpipes and this whole thing, right? But I was like young and stupid. I'm like, oh, this would be great. And
did you get it? Did you get it tattooed on yourself anywhere?
Oh no.
Okay,
never.
So you weren't too young and stupid.
No. And I'm not a tattoo guy, so fortunately, otherwise I probably would have. But I did have a buddy of mine, the guy that I moved to Vegas with. He's an artist type, and I remember him drawing like a pre-concept idea of it, but I never did anything with it.
Gotcha.
And then now, even 10 years later, I was like, for business purposes, it would be way better to not have that.
Yeah.
Because nobody can spell it, because I spell it funny, and it's just annoying. But I've had it for so long that it's kind of hard to get out of.
Gotcha. So it's just something you're stuck with.
Pretty much.
Okay.
But for the most part, that's my email address. It's just the name I use on like certain things when it's related to piping. But it really doesn't mean
sounds
anything
cool.
anymore.
It totally sounds cool. So
It does. Okay. It's supposed to be like strength and power. Yeah, all
that's
that.
Right. I mean, I think of like Iron Man, or also the Iron Man races, that kind of stuff, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So speaking of the quality of the Las Vegas Pipeband, it's. I mean, for me as an outsider looking in, it's an awesome band. Partly because of your awesome social media stuff that you make. You made some really cool videos and stuff that I'd encourage anybody to hop on YouTube and just search Las Vegas Pipeband. Aside from those interviews, which I think are really insightful and interesting, especially when you get somebody like Stuart Little on there. You got some funny stuff. Mm-hmm. You got some great quality just recordings of playing and stuff. And you also have this thing called Celtic Thanksgiving, which I've never had the chance to go to one, but it sounds to me like what all pipe bands should be aspiring to like get like sort of local people involved or interested. Tell me about Celtic Thanksgiving. I mean, this year was a bummer. I don't think you guys got to do it because of COVID, but tell me a little bit about it. How did it develop? What are some of your favorite things about it? How does it work? That kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, thanks for saying that. First of all, it is a labor of love. It's very, as most things pipe band related are, it's an incredible pain in the ass. But when
And
it's over, you're
almost worth
like
it most
really
years.
happy. Almost worth it most years.
Yeah.
But the original idea, this was an idea I had like way before I was even pipe major. It's just something that was in the back of my head. Like, um, nobody does a concert here. Like one of the biggest things I always enjoyed as growing up and being in high school band and like college stuff was like performing in a concert setting. Like it's very exciting. Like it always has been, always probably will be. Um, and like our people never ever experience that. Most people in pipe bands, well, I wouldn't say most, maybe a significant part of people in pipe bands don't ever learn another instrument. They didn't come from something. Maybe the drummers, but most other people are just, hey, bagpipes. My family is Scottish. I'm going to learn that. It's
Yeah.
mostly where those people come from, right?
Yeah, and so often the extent of performing for the pipe band is competition. Like that's
Yeah,
what you're
that's
doing.
about all you do. And then maybe you'll do a parade if you're unlucky.
Right.
Uh,
Basically, if you have no other way to make money, you'll do a parade.
Correct. Yeah, and I hate parades, and we don't do them for that purpose
Yeah, well,
unless somebody's
that's
really
all we
willing
can
to
do
pay.
out here. We don't have like awesome venues and stuff out here. We're a parade band for sure because that's our lifeblood. But I understand.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
if we had any other option, we'd do something else for sure.
Right, understood. Yeah. So anyway, this is an idea I had a long time ago, like just to have some sort of formal concert sort of thing. And then I thought it would be cool. It's also a great excuse to have somebody of a super high quality come out to play and or work with the band and create inspiration for the other players. That was really the impetus of why I came up with this idea. But then it took me being pipe major, then getting settled, and then starting to figure out like, all right, can I pull this off and how would it work? And I just happened to get a pretty good president at the time of the organization. We're a nonprofit, so you have to have a board.
Yeah.
And back in like, I forget the year, maybe 2011, 2012, we got a very good president in who was very helpful and motivated to do things. And she helped me get it off the ground because, I gave her the idea, that would be great. Let's have somebody of some significance come out and play like a Jack Lee Stewart little type or whatever. We've had lots of people out over the years. Callum Beaumont, Ali Henderson. This year we were really sad. We were going to have Ross Miller was scheduled to play, and we just had to cancel it, obviously. But so like the idea being, it gives us an outlet to play something that's not competition. It's a different part of the year. It's usually a downtime part of the year, so it gives us motivation to keep working when everybody else is kind of not doing anything.
Yeah, 100%.
The fall is where everybody takes a break and mostly doesn't do anything.
Maintenance goes, and all your muscles go.
Yep, all that. Yep. So, and the Thanksgiving part of it just sort of fell in our laps in the sense that, we couldn't do it in January because of Burns Night. We couldn't do it in April because of the Vegas games. We can't really do it in the summer because we're too competition focused. So our choice was the fall, and we just had to sort of make it work. The idea being the Thanksgiving thing, the first year it just happened to fall on Thanksgiving weekend because that's all we could get. So then we kind of went with it. It was,
Really?
Yeah.
That's really surprising to me because like I'm sitting here going like, man, we do a St. Patrick's Day concert like probably most pipe bands do. It's I don't know of anybody else who's doing bagpipe stuff around Thanksgiving. So to me, that looks like one of the best strokes of genius through it all, and it happened by luck, huh?
Sometimes it's just luck. Yeah, I mean, we knew we were going to do it in October or November. We were trying to stay away from December because nobody does anything in December.
Of course.
And that's sort of how it worked out. So the venue we could get, I think that was the only weekend that year we could do it. And we were like really nervous because it's like, nobody's going to be around. People are going to be thinking about Thanksgiving. Nobody's going to come. We did it for free. It was open to the public. It was basically a 2-hour show. The pipe band played, on and off for maybe an hour. We tried. The other part of this that was significant was I was trying to create an event other than the Highland games because that the other Celtic groups in town would come together over. So the dancers,
sure, yeah.
Irish and Scottish. Irish dancers very often get left out of everything. So, and I prefer Irish dancing to be quite honest. So I wanted to include them. Scottish dancers, of course, other musicians, meaning like, violin or guitar or people doing like trad music or whatever whatever it was called at the time.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, and just make it kind of is like a Celtic variety show is kind of like joke that I say about it. But, we even did where 5 of us from the band did an Irish step dance with actual real Irish dancers. We went and took lessons for 3 months and learned a whole choreography
Really?
And did it on stage. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Is that one on YouTube somewhere?
Oh yeah, it's out there.
Great. I'm gonna find that one for sure.
I'll link it to you. It was hard, man. I'll tell you what. Like it was hard from because it was my idea. I'm like, oh, what would be cool if we did this? How cool would that be? People would be shocked.
And the dancers are over there.
And then
with
I
one
had to
eyebrow
do
up, just
it.
be like, "Oh yeah, you think you can do this?"
Oh yeah, everybody's like, yeah. And a couple people jumped on. We had one of the kids in the band was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then you may have heard of me talk about a guy named Angel in our band. Angel's like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then a couple other guys jumped on, and so 5 of us did it. And it was like, oh boy, I guess we really gotta like. We took lessons like every week for 3 months.
Wow, that's
with
commitment.
the localized. Yeah, man, it was wild. Like to learn this choreography and learn some basics enough where we could pull it off, so it didn't look like we're just idiots out there, you know. So like stuff like that, it was just completely off the wall. Then we created like an a cappella group that we do where we sing a cappella songs or like sea shanties or whatever, just
I'm
whatever.
familiar with Bollocks and Fiddle. I have seen a few of those videos.
Yep, those. So it just became this fun thing to produce. And the idea again was to bring people together at a time of year where we include everybody as much as possible, you know, and sort of have something to do together. Even though we ran it, you know, we didn't make any money on it. I mean, it was free to the public. We would get a grant, hopefully, if we were lucky. Generally, you know, we'd lose money on the deal mostly. Yeah. And bring out some good players. Like our first year, we had Jack Lee, because we knew him, we were like, all right, Jack, we'll see if he'll do it. And he did, and then we just started to open it up from there, you know. But it's a great event. It's a great time. A few years in, I forget how many years in, we had to start charging. And the reason for that is a great story.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So the first year, like you could say, sold out. Like it was completely full. The place seats 400 people, and like standing room only. Only they don't let you stand there, right? So,
and had you guys advertised it pretty hard, or was it kind of a surprise to see so many people show up?
We did. You know, in social media circles, we didn't like, and we bought posters and we put them up around like the music shops in town. Like we did all that because we were like, nobody's going to be there. We've got to do something, right?
Yeah, try to get someone other than just the parents of the band members.
Correct, exactly. So, so we did that, and it was packed, and everybody like loved it. So the next year, same thing happened again. We made it was free to the public, like. You know, and so people would call us about it 6 months in advance. Like, is this happening this year? Like, I guess we don't know yet. We haven't decided yet. So anyway, a few years in, what happened was same thing kind of happened. It was like maybe 4 years in, and as parents do, like some parents or uncles of some dancers came late and couldn't get in because the fire code, right? They wouldn't let them in.
Oh yeah.
So one of my band members who wasn't quite in the band yet, but he was like learning. We usually put them in positions of like volunteer for stuff. So he was one of our ushers, and he wouldn't let the guy in. So the guy, you know, MF'd him all over the place. So my daughter's in there. You're gonna let me in? And just was like threatening to beat him up. Like he had a couple guys with him.
Oh man.
So it was this whole thing. Like we're like, so. So the next year we decided like, all right, we're going to start charging to force people to have to know ahead of time whether they're coming. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So and then we charged like $5. It was just a gatekeeping thing. It wasn't. Yeah. Totally. It didn't really do anything.
Basically, still free.
Yeah, exactly. So and then that sold out and with like incredibly fast. And then we kept raising the prices a little bit at a time every year. It did help in the sense that people knew whether they were getting in or not. It also, but you also start to realize how late people wait to go to something.
Yeah, you got
so
people
like you'd have like 100 tickets sold up until the week before, and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my god, nobody's coming, and then boom, it all hits. And then all of a sudden it's all yeah, exactly. So that was it's a fun event. We really enjoy it. It's unfortunate it didn't happen this year. A ton of work, obviously, planning and all that kind of stuff, but we had
Oh, go ahead.
We had Callum out last year, Callum Beaumont, and he's fantastic. It's just so great to like have the opportunity to listen to these guys play up close because we out here everywhere on the West Coast, I think, rarely get to hear these guys.
Oh yeah, especially in person. I mean, you can look them up on YouTube, but that's about it.
Yeah. So
and do you often get them to at least hang out with the band, or do you sometimes get them to stick around for an extra day to do like a workshop or something?
We never have done the workshop thing. That was always kind of the intent, but especially the guys from Scotland, they're almost always dodging their real job for a weekend.
Oh, sure,
and it's an insane flight to get there and back. Yeah. So they almost always want to leave on Sunday so they can get back to work by like Tuesday, you know?
Yeah, there aren't a lot of people in this world that are making a real good living on bagpiping such that they could just hang out.
No. And even if you offer them like a workshop fees or whatever it might be. Like some of these guys just don't charge all that much. It's kind of funny. It's kind of weird, but like they make more. Either they have less freedom in their job than you think, or they make more doing it. I don't know which because I never asked. But it seems like they're really like itching to get back. Like they just can't take the time off, and maybe because they're not allowed. I don't know how it works, but I never, like I said, I never asked. But one thing I want to say about that is we do try to. So in the concert formation, there's two things we do. We do the concert, and then we do an after party, what we call an after parties for the performers, basically.
That's a great idea.
Really what I always intended was for the guest piper, whoever that is, to perform at the after party. So a bulk of their job is actually that. They play twice on stage for 5 minutes each. That's incredibly little. Like, just do whatever you want. Like, sometimes we request, like Stuart Little, I asked him to play Thunderstruck, the Gordon Duncan version.
Yeah, of course.
But other than that, I'd like just kill 5 minutes, do whatever you want, Yeah. But then the after party, it's like, all right, now shred for
blow my band
on and off for an hour. Yeah, like blow everybody's mind, show them what's possible, and get people amped up. And it's just awesome. Like that's the part that's just fun. So like Jack would come and he'd get like the kids to play with him, or and that's huge for a lot of these guys. Like, oh my god, I got to play with Jack Lee. Or Callum he's like nonstop, thousands of reels in his head, and people are dancing, doing stuff. It's just awesome. Stuart did the same thing. Like he was like playing. He's like arranging this country dance circle. He's like, all right, now you do. I'm gonna play, but when I do this, you're gonna do this, and he's like teaching everybody how to dance.
Really?
And it's like, yeah, man, it was wild. It's like, this is awesome. This is exactly what we wanted. It was like what they would actually do over there that we never see.
Yeah.
It's that like in the pub kind of stuff, cultural stuff that we never realize is happening, meaning musical culture kind of thing,
Right.
It was awesome.
You get the sense that we're really only getting the tip of the iceberg here.
Big time. Yeah, we just see the YouTube performance competition thing. Like, you rarely see the fun stuff,
Yeah. So it sounds to me like even when you're losing money on this event, it's paying dividends both in just sort of community outreach and then also just like internal inspiration for everybody who's there.
Now that's where the Chanter Rant part comes into this whole thing.
Tell me about it.
It's not nearly as... I mean, maybe someday it'll come back to me and I'll realize that it was all worth it. But in the moment, very often, it's cool in the moment, but you're also drinking whiskey, so everything's cool at the time.
You could just got anybody to stand up and play and do a country dance, right?
Right. I mean, even Josh sounds good when I'm drinking whiskey. You know what I mean? So, I would say last year, because we had Andrew Hoenecke out with Callum, so this first time we ever added a drummer to the mix, and he's like, yeah, I'll come out for it. It would be fun to do. And so he really inspired one of our snare drummers. Like she really got into it after being able to see him and like work with him, which has been great. So that's like the one really successful instance that I can think of.
Oh, really?
That somebody really like got highly motivated. So everybody else is like, oh, that's cool. All right. And then they still don't show up to practice next week or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, this is not working as I had hoped,
Yeah.
And maybe I just don't see it. I do have very high expectations of people, so that can be troublesome. But it definitely did not seem to instill that motivation that I was hoping for.
Wasn't lighting the fire that you thought it would, huh?
No. I mean, They kind I don't know. It's interesting, especially prepping for the concert the month before, like, because you have to go into a little bit extra practices and just the hemming and hawing, if you will, of we got 2 practices this week, and just it's just like nonstop like complaining,
Yeah.
And then what's also funny is you get to like the day before and somebody has a brilliant idea. Oh, you know what we should have done?
Oh, of course.
Like,
yeah.
Hey man, how about like last year in February when I was asking people for ideas? Like, you bring it up then. What do we?
there are 2 things that always happen the day before an event like that. Either somebody says I can't be there, or they say, hey, why don't we do this? And it's like, neither of these are good. We've got a program. We're sticking to the program, and you're going to be there.
Correct. Incredibly frustrating. And as the leader, theoretically, I'm supposed to be positive, but I find it incredibly annoying.
Yeah, you have to be like, that's such a great idea.
Well, yeah, well, I'll really look into that next year. We'll do some research, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that at all. Like, I want you to do it when give me ideas when it's time for ideas. Like, this is the wrong time. But you're right. Also, the last minute no shows, which is for the concert. Like, I would say almost has never happened, but almost everything else.
Yeah,
That is the
concerts a
thing.
good
Like
enough time that those excuses don't come up. Huh?
I think they're just so afraid of me around
I
that
see.
time period.
Ramped it up. Huh?
Like, do not. Oh my god! Like, I get insane. When the last week before the show, it gets very intense.
You're like, let me see.
But there's
Give me your phone. I want to see your calendar right now.
like, I'm gonna put everybody. I'm gonna blank this out of your calendar on everybody's phone. Everybody give me
Right.
your like months in advance. Like, nobody's going. So it's St. Patrick's Day and the concert. I don't care what you got to do. I don't care if you're dead. Show up.
Oh yeah, because St. Patrick's Day. There are some bands that can make a little bit of money here in Salt Lake if they go hop around between bars and stuff on St. Patrick's Day. They make a little bit, but I'd imagine it's nothing compared to a city like Boston or Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yeah,
kind
I'd
of
say
where you
like
make all your money for the rest of the year is St. Patrick's Day?
pretty much, and we should probably look into not doing that. But I would say like 70% of our like operating budget is St. Patrick's Day, like income from St. Patrick's Day. And then we get. I mean, normal years we might get like convention openings and like honor guard type stuff for conventions and stuff, but that hasn't happened in at least a year now. Normally, that we might get some of those sort of deals, but St. Patrick's Day is significant. And last year, like we did maybe half the business we were supposed to because that was the day everything was shutting down.
Oh
like
yeah,
literally
yeah,
that day was the
we had
day.
our concert shut down.
Yeah, it was wild. Like some of us, myself and Josh, just went out and we just did whatever we could. We were like, we're out. We were the only ones playing. Maybe one other guy.
Like playing on sidewalks and stuff.
We had some
With a
gigs set
change
up
cup
where,
out.
yeah, we were thinking about that. There was a couple places that didn't cancel, but a lot of them did.
Yeah.
There were some people that were still resistant to everything going on at the time,
Right.
and they're like, "Oh, we're doing it anyway." Like, okay, whatever. And we're young and stupid, so
Getting
like,
quick
yeah, we'll
makes
do
the
it.
money before we catch it.
We were absolutely desperate. Like, oh my god, everything is closing. Like, we're gonna be so screwed this year if this doesn't happen. So we were just out hustling and doing whatever. If somebody called us, we would, still said, "All right, we're going forward. All right, we'll be there." That kind of thing. So.
Yeah.
But we should probably look into expanding our income opportunities. But it's just that's how we make our money. Like parades don't pay in Las Vegas. It's like literally they charge you to be in a parade, so we don't do them. You know what I mean? So
Definitely not.
so St. Patrick's Day is where it's at, and a little bit of other things here and there when you get a big event to Las Vegas. Sometimes you get like a curling event here and we play or something. That kind of thing.
Oh, really? I mean, that makes sense. It's a Scottish sport, but, middle of the desert, you don't usually think of pumice sliding across ice in Las Vegas.
You'd be surprised, man. We get the North American Championship of curling every 2 years.
Really?
And sometimes every year. Yeah.
That's like the equivalent of like French fries in a Frosty or something, like that salty and sweet combination. It's like, yeah, let's go lay down the ice in Las Vegas.
Seems very odd, but it's a very cool event. Like, and Canadians come out in force.
Wow.
Like, it's always sold out. Like, all the events are sold out. Yeah, man, it's wild and it's great. It's a really cool event. It's really well run. We're very happy to be part of it. But, again, they haven't done it because of everything going on. But normally it's about every 2 years that they come to Vegas to do it.
Now speaking of these big events, the piano guys are really popular over here in Utah. So I was aware of it when you guys did a thing with them. Mm-hmm. Nothing against them. I'm not necessarily personally like a super big fan. I mean, they're cool. They're cool. But it sounded like a cool opportunity anyway. To go do a show. But the one I wanted to ask you about, did you guys play with the Chieftains, like the Chieftains?
Yes, we've done it 2 or 3 times now. I think probably 3.
Goodness.
Yeah, and I'll give you some controversy if you want.
Give me controversy. Give me anything, honestly, because like right now I'm just like I salivated a little bit. Just I've been listening to the Chieftains like since I was a tiny child. Like they are like the definition of Celtic music for me. And so to imagine playing with them even once, but to 2 or 3 times, give me anything. You can't dash my hopes. You can't ruin this for me. Just
no. It's not like bad per se, but it's just an interesting sort of dichotomy, I suppose.
Well, not very many people are going to get to do this. So yeah, tell me what it's like, because we're all going to live vicariously through you, and I will stop interrupting you now. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. The Chieftains, it's a lot of fun to play. They give you the it's always the same 2 tunes that you play on the pipes. And we've done it maybe 3 times. I think we've done the piano guys maybe 3 times as well, if I remember correctly, maybe twice, something like that. And I'll tell you this, playing for the piano guys is way better than playing for the Chieftains.
Wow.
And what I mean by that, and strictly from how they treat you standpoint. The respect the piano guys give you versus what the chieftains in typical Celtic music, how they consider pipers, is very much on display. They didn't do anything specific, but they just weren't very nice to us.
Are the chieftains kind of like, we have you here because the crowd demands it. If it were up to us, we would not have you here at all.
That's the impression. That's the feeling you get. Absolutely.
No.
And maybe not from the main guy. He's very old at this point. I don't know.
Little Patty?
Yeah. And he seems to be nice, but nobody talks to you in the hallways. And the other musicians, like there's like a cello player or something, violin player, and I don't know, a couple others. And they're just super cold. They're super high end, typical what you'd expect walking into a place like that. And that was my impression. And most people,
global superstars as well, right? So maybe that's
correct.
Part of it.
And you definitely get that. Like, we're the guest musicians that usually steal the show. Probably a little jealous there because the piper and definitely going. And you just feel it, man. Classical musicians hate pipers, and it's one of those. So playing for the chieftains, I would say I would never do it again.
Really, it's that bad.
There's in it for us. If you're a new person, especially as the leader of the group, to get people organized, pull this thing off, is very difficult.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The tunes are not exactly simple. They're not hard, but they're not High Road to Gerlach, right? So
I'd imagine you probably are dealing with like, all right, now we have to take a musical cue from another musician, so you've got to be watching and be ready to go, and that stuff does get complicated for sure.
Correct. And we're talking about pipers who've probably never been in that situation. Most of them never worked with a conductor
and
at all.
Anything beyond band rolling too. Like that's the only ever really experienced.
Yeah. And you have really no chance to prep for it. I suppose you could. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do until he tells us he's going to do it, and I try to translate it so that they understand. Mm-hmm. But mostly we go by the rule of just do what I do and just come in a little bit late and you'll be fine. Just don't get up. Just don't start early.
No early E's, please.
Just don't start early. You'll be fine. So anyway, like the opposite of that is the piano guys, and I'm like you. Like I never heard of them until the first time they asked us to play. I am not into that kind of music. Like it's okay. Like it's
no
just not my
offense to
thing.
them. Like they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
It's just not the thing I usually go seeking. So.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But then I found out everybody loves them. Like we're gonna play for the piano guys, and I just thought I've never heard of them. And everyone's like, what? The piano guys? I'm like, wait, you know them?
Part of that might be like you do have some Mormons in your pipe band, right?
We have over the years. I don't, not technically currently, but
I could be wrong, but I know that they're hot otherwise, but they're definitely they're pretty big within the Mormons, and so that could have some
absolutely
effect for sure.
They're absolutely huge in Mormon circles, but surprisingly, outside of that too, that's what I found out. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
And the people, I'm like, hey, who wants to play for the piano guys in the band? Like everybody's like, oh, I want to do that. Like I've never even heard of them. Like I don't even know. Like, oh my God. So, and we're talking everybody, non-Mormons and everything. Like, oh my God, that'll be so cool.
Oh, there you go.
And the thing about them is they treat with respect. The guys, they're all super nice. They will. Maybe that's a Mormon thing. I don't know, but they will come up to you and say hi and thank you for playing. And none of that happened with the chieftains. Like nobody came up and said thank you for being here. Now the piano guys pay you to play. The chieftains do not.
Really?
Like at least come in and
get some exposure.
Yeah, lucky you. You get to play with the chieftains. Like, all right, yeah, that's cool. The first time. You know what I mean? So, but at least say thank you or come or like send the manager in. I don't know, anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like I'm pretty sensitive to that sort of thing. So it's annoying, but piano guys they were just super nice. And it's granted you got to be there for so long.
Yeah.
To play for maybe 60 seconds, maybe.
Yeah. Did they have you do? Because I know they did a YouTube video a little while ago. I think it was Amazing Grace. Is that what they have you do?
Yeah, it's just Amazing Grace. It's their variation of it, and it's a little bit different than you typically play it. It's like in 4/4 time. But it's not Cajun Grace, just to be clear. It's definitely not Cajun Grace, but it's got that sort of feel.
Yeah.
But it's super simple, and it's a great experience. Yeah, and the Chieftains was fun. Don't get me wrong. Everybody goes nuts when the pipers come out to play.
Yeah.
Which is always fun, and you're usually in a cool place, like a good theater of some sort or whatever. But not to say it was bad. Like you, I have a very good buddy, Daryl, in California, who's a piper, and like the second time we played with them, he called me immediately when he heard about it. He's like, "Dude, I'll do anything if you let me come play."
Yeah.
because they're
I
like
just
you,
want to
they're
be
like the
close to
band.
them.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I've always listened to them. I just want to be able to play. I've never had the opportunity out here in California. Like, yeah, hell yeah, man. If you want, I don't care. Come on
Yeah.
out. So he did, and he just absolutely loved it. But and people like it. It's it's certainly fun, but it's not, to me. It's not worth the headache. Like, I have no feeling to ever need to do that again.
Yeah. That
So
is
anyway,
interesting.
just yeah.
So I've had the experience of playing with pipers with a concert band before, and we did not worry about getting B flat chanters and reeds. We just kind of tried to tune down, and they kind of tuned up. Is that
Mm-hmm.
how does the Las Vegas Pipe Band usually handle that with these big, sort of what's the word? These like I want to say crossover, but there's another word for it. Collaborations. These collaborations that you do with other
Oh
groups.
yeah. We bought B flat chanters.
Yeah.
Yeah, we I don't know however many years ago, probably when we played the Chieftains the first time, which was probably 8 years ago or something, and maybe I don't remember exactly, but and I think we were in a very good place financially at the time, so we just bought a bunch, 6 of them maybe or something, and
Yeah.
we were like, all right, if we ever get these gigs, I own one myself because I do things like that on occasion, but
Yeah.
I think we had mine plus 5 or 6 others or whatever it was, and so this is as many people as I can allow to do it, which also turned out to be a great way to cut people.
Yeah, then it's not just you being mean, right? You can be
Right,
like, well, we
exactly.
only have
It's
this
like
many chanters.
the top 5 get in, and what can I say? But yeah, we use B flat chanters, and I think it was. I know for sure the piano guys required it. Like, they send you out like this whole thing via email. Like, this is when you need to be there. This, like, very detailed, exactly what you need to know. You need to have B flat chanters. You need to block your drone, and they seem to know how to do it. So they probably had somebody help them set it up. Tell them how to do this. So, and then Chief did the same thing. Like, I don't remember getting a mailer. They might have sent us something. I don't remember, but I know they sent us music that a guy in California had arranged for them, and that's
Gotcha.
the music that everybody used for the Chieftains. But yeah, you just B flat chanters. Like, there's no way to tune flat enough, at least in my experience.
Oh yeah,
without 'em.
in this case we had to have the concert band also tune up to meet us. We definitely couldn't get
Oh
all the way
jeez.
down there. So it was
Yeah.
kind of messy.
Yeah.
And I personally have a B flat chanter, and like honestly, I think it's my best sounding chanter. Like when I play on my B flat chanter with my B flat reed in there, like I've got no tape on my chanter for some reason. Like everything just comes out great.
Yep, that's definitely true. Especially when they started making B flat reeds. I don't know how long that's been going on, but like when I started buying those last maybe 3 years ago, whatever it was, like, wow, these work amazingly well in
Yeah.
this chanter.
Yeah,
They also work
especially-
really well in a normal chanter, to be honest.
I'm really excited with you guys have the Chanter Rant has their sponsor. Is it McClellan Bagpipes?
McClellan bagpipes, yeah.
They're working on that elevation chanter. I'm very excited about that. But I feel like
Yeah, man.
that's the effect that I'm getting from a B flat chanter is that like my high G is strong and in tune, and that's like magic.
That's that's really all you got to do. Somebody, and hopefully McClellan pulls it off. They're about to do they've made final tweaks, and they're right on the edge of like producing the chanter finally.
I've harassed them a
with
bit.
a remake.
I'm trying to email too often. I'm like, when's it coming out?
They're right on the edge, and I spoke to Joe Brady this morning, as a matter of fact, and just sort of, and I'm on him too. I'm like, hey man, like I would love to get these for the band, but what's going on? So, and I've tested just myself, but it's like a high G that I don't have to tape to hell, all to hell, which is great.
It's like
And the
magic.
B flat chanter, you're right, does the same thing. The only thing is it gets it's just a little finicky on the bottom hand, at least in my experience. But it seems more unstable with weather than like a normal chanter. But maybe
Interesting. I haven't had an experience with weather, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I believe you. I just haven't.
yeah. I mean, I very seldom use it, to be honest. But so I haven't put a ton of time into it. But generally, that's what I remember about it. It gets a little squawky in the bottom hand at times if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So, which many players in our band are, don't have the experience to be careful. They just, it's all or nothing, and just everything goes to hell, So, but yeah, no, it's very similar. It's like I have a McClellan chanter right now. It's tuning somewhere around 470, believe it or not, with a normal reed. And it sounds great.
Yeah.
Like it's big, and it's got a big sound with smaller holes. Like it's just, so far I'm really enjoying it. I normally play a McCallum MC squared chanter with the band and my solos, and I struggle with getting a high G right. It's just not, I just can't, no matter what reed I use or what I do, I just can't seem to get it to be where I want it.
Well, McClellan will keep sponsoring you, and McCallum probably never will with that kind of statement. So.
Well, I tell you, make a channel that works in the U.S. or Canada or wherever.
Right,
what are you going to do?
Yeah. Now I've got a hypothetical I want to ask you about, and then I promise I'll start wrapping it up. I don't want to make you give up your whole day here.
Yeah, no worries.
But can you imagine, Andy? You've been playing for a long time. You've run a pipe band. You've done a lot of stuff. So if hypothetically, like the world bagpipe authorities all got together and said, okay, we are going to officially, like across the board, change bagpipe music notation and chanter tuning to either concert A or concert B flat. And the notation that's written on the page is going to match that. And all across the board, we're all going to be shooting for that tuning. So it basically becomes more standardized with classical music.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good thing, first of all? And then secondly, which would you want? Do you want bagpipes to play at concert A or concert B flat?
So in preparation for this, I've listened to some of your episodes to try to figure out what your show was. And I've just started to hear you start to ask people about this. I am all for standardization because I think the playing field is incredibly unfair the way the bagpipe world does it currently. So both in numbers and the pitch thing. And normal musicians, if you will, quote unquote, normal musicians, don't understand the idea of one band trying to be a little brighter than the next band and how that affects the impression of like a human being's impression of what sounds good or better relative to the thing you just heard,
Right, yeah.
So I think we're dealing with incredibly unfair system in my opinion. So I would be highly for standardization. The note I wouldn't really care that much, to be honest. Like I don't know enough to say A flat's better than B, or sorry, A is better than B flat or vice versa. I don't even care if they said, all right, 449 or 476 or whatever the note, whatever it is, like whatever it is becomes the standard, and I understand standardizing it so that you're playing with other instruments more. That's a little less of a conundrum, I suppose, but I don't know. You're going to get a lot of the traditionalists or whatever that won't want to go that way. Maybe a lot of people, but I think anytime you standardize it, you level the playing field, and that's inherent. And what we do is inherently unfair.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't we even just have a standard for a specific games and just like have today everybody's shooting for this, and like you don't have to be exactly there, but they say like you got to be within 5 cents of this or something like that, for today. I don't know.
Yeah, and I understand the difficulty of controlling that because if you get a hot day, like and you normally play at 476, you're playing at 481 or whatever it is.
Right.
So maybe the people organizing would have to have a clue, and very often the people organizing don't have a clue.
Yeah, you'd have to have the pipe majors get together at the beginning or something like, all right, here's the weather forecast, here's where we're playing. All right, we can all agree on this pitch, and that's what we'll go for today.
Yeah, and I mean. Yes, there's definitely an issue, and I can hear Andrew Douglas spinning in his wherever he is right now.
Not as great, really.
Yeah, he's not dead, but he's doing a dance right now, losing his mind. But I've heard him talk about things like this a little bit. But like, you're not trying to pick a number, and maybe this is an old way of thinking. Maybe it's the right way of thinking. I don't really know. I haven't spent enough time, thinking about it to come up with a conclusion. But he's very. I don't know. Some people are very against like trying to hit a number. You're just trying to tune your drones, for example, relative to whatever your chanter's doing that day, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So to try to pick a number and force everybody to it is going to cause issues. But then maybe that's part of the challenge of the pipe major to be able to pull that off, because very often a band is judged not intentionally, but by the skill of the pipe major's ability to tune and or set up a band, right?
Yeah, so often that's what it comes down to, yeah.
Yeah, almost. There's a significant part of that that's never, talked about, I guess. And it's not like it's a secret. It just is how the game's thing works,
Yeah.
So some pipe majors are better at tuning than others, or whatever, or maybe they're just better at systems or whatever it is. If you ever hear Richard Parks talk about like everything he just does from a common sense approach. And maybe that's why he's so dang good at it. I don't know, but like to say like everybody's got to play at 480 might mean the pipe major's got to be a little bit better, and maybe that's the
Yeah.
thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it could raise the bar for entry for competition and even creating a band to such a degree that it would actually be detrimental to the community. So I can see that.
It's possible. Yeah, there's definitely an argument to be had there for sure. What the answer is, I mean, I still think standardization makes it overall better in the long term, but there's going to be that change that is you're going to get resistance on,
Yeah.
But
Which, of course, with any change, there's always some resistance.
Right, exactly. So that and make the numbers the same, and which most people seem to hate that idea for some reason. Why, I don't understand, but okay. Creates more bands because people won't be able to. You can't flood a band with too many players, and creates competition to fit into a certain circumstance, which improves the level of play, and then also just makes everything fair theoretically.
Yeah. Well, I'd better not say anything on that topic because some of my best friends are in some of the biggest behemoths. So.
Understood.
So I want to kind of bring this toward as graceful a close as possible by asking you two more questions, if that's okay. One would be, in your experience where you have played multiple instruments, including pipes and drums, what are the benefits for pipers learning to play drums and drummers learning to play pipes, even if they don't do it competitively?
Pipers for sure. I think it's a great idea to have pipers take snare lessons or something on that side. I would say snare more than anything, but because even before I took snare lessons, because I think like a drummer, like I was very aware of what was going on over there and what works and what doesn't. Not that my opinion is better than anybody else's in particular, but I can tell when things aren't right, as opposed to maybe knowing when things are particularly good.
Sure.
So like if the bass drummer's off, or if the ensemble isn't lining up right, or stuff like that, like I can tell that because I'm aware of what drums are supposed to be doing in overall, and that can be incredibly useful, even if you're just a core player. Like sometimes what we do, like I've done this in band before, is all right, I want you to play through this tune again, or this part. We did this recently. And I want you to listen to what the drummers are doing. Like, don't focus on your playing. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. But just think about what the snare drummers are playing with you and how it lines up and where the accents fall, stuff like that. And as soon as they started doing that, at first it wasn't right. And then we did, okay, now do it again and try to match them. Like, try to land that note at the same time they're landing their roll or whatever it was, Yeah. And then they could suddenly, like, we were playing tighter because they were listening and or thinking about what the other instruments of the band are doing. Now I had to point that out, but if I didn't know that, like, we would just be playing two chords playing at the same time in the general vicinity of each other, right?
Oh, that's a beautiful way to describe it. Absolutely. Two chords playing at the same time, general vicinity. Absolutely.
Right. So, and we don't want that to be better musicians or a better presentation of our band or whatever that is, competitively or just musically, So, like, doing those kind of things, like just knowing kind of what's going on over there, because I learned that score. It was a march score that and I'm not playing in the drum section anymore, and I'm by no means very good, but I'm aware of it, and that's really huge, I think. Same thing goes the other way, I suppose. Like, betcha, and I don't have this experience, but drummers that play pipes are going to be more likely to understand the intricacies of the rhythm of the pipe tune, right?
Especially if you're talking something like a Strasbass or something like that.
Correct. Strasbass, reels, whatever, things other than maybe just your typical 4/4 march, but even that to a certain extent. You're just so much more aware of like what you're trying to accomplish in the grand scheme of this monster of a pipe band,
Yeah.
Like, why is this particular hit on the tenor so important when it seems so unimportant?
When taken out of context all by itself, it might sound completely random or totally unimportant or even weird.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like I do this in my normal drumming life too, where I'm listening to the guitar player or the bass player, and like I'm lining up my drum parts to match the rhythm of the part that they're playing. Even I do it. Even I don't even think about it a lot of times until after we record ourselves. I'm like, I'm really locked in on what he's doing there. I didn't do that on purpose. It just kind of came out because I was listening to him. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like a planned thing. And I think
it's like an ability to listen to someone else while still playing what you're playing instead of listening to yourself while you're playing.
Correct. That's huge. And I think that's where beginner bands, and maybe they just can't because they just don't have the RAM in the head, if you will, to
Yeah,
like
sometimes
think
you gotta
about to
focus on
have.
yourself.
Yeah, they just can't think that much yet, but that should be their goal eventually. So, but yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's beautiful. So I'm imagining a beautiful future where all drummers have at least a practice chanter and all pipers have at least sticks and a pad.
I think so. We did this thing once at Flagstaff. There's a school in Flagstaff here, or in Arizona, obviously. And Hoineke actually was teaching that year, and they did this thing where they cross-trained. They had all the pipers go to a drum class, and all the drummers go like play practice chanter. Mostly just it was a fun thing, but also pipers think like a drummer. This is what the drummers are doing. And then I thought it was I was like, wow, that's a great idea. Like our people should be doing that. Yeah. So
I'm all for it. And so now finally, Andy, and we'll probably kind of have the graceful fade out into drones or something as you make this next statement.
Oh boy. Wait. Can I guess what you're going to ask me?
Go ahead and ask me. Or guess. Go ahead and guess.
All right. It's an absolute travesty to put pineapples on pizza. I'm going down on the record saying it. No pineapples on pizza. You're killing me, people. Is that it?